Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. President Muhammadu Buhari was sworn into office on the 29th of May 2015, following his victory in the 2015 general election and his fourth time contesting. In 2019, he ran as the consensus candidate of his party, the All Progressives Congress, APC, winning the presidential election for the second time. With the 2023 general elections around the corner, the political class and indeed Nigerians were keenly waiting to see who the president will anoint as his successor. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The presidential primaries of the ruling party ended up being an open contest. With his second tenure elapsing in 2023, and without a successor, questions about the president's political legacies have begun to spring up. Today on the program, we'll be discussing the election without President Buhari on the ballot. We're joined by in-house analyst and State House correspondent for Trust TV, Mr. Kainde Amodu, as well as the head of investigative desk for Daily Trust, Fidelis Maclever. Let's now take a quick break, after which the program commences proper. Thank you for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics, and today our talking point is an election without President Buhari on the ballot. And having in the studio right now, Mr. Kainde Amodu, and of course, Mr. Fidelis Maclever. Let me start with Mr. Fidelis. Okay. Yes, President Muhammadu Buhari is not new, to the nation's electoral landscape. Looking at the fact that, he has been contesting to lead the country since 2003, 2007, 2011, and finally he was able to realize his dream in 2015. Now is in his last lap, of his 8 years tenure. His stewardship is gradually coming to an end. If you look back at President Muhammadu Buhari, his dispositions before the 2015 elections, and now that he is on the saddle for 7 years, and your assessment, what would you remember the president for instance?
Well, like you rightly say, the president is not new in the contest for, the presidential race in the country. He has had a shot at it 4 times before he eventually, emerged victorious. And within the period he had been in power so far, when he came, he itemized his areas of focus, which were reduced into 3 broad areas: fighting corruption, insecurity, and
grabbing the economy.
The economy. Well, one can say yes, some progress have been made. In the area of corruption, he was able to secure some convictions and made some, progress. But a lot still needs to be done. There are some politicians who ordinarily, some would say, are like the sacred cows, were convicted. Some governors, former governors, inclusive. But then by the end of the day, there was also that problem or, criticism from people that some people were also asked to, freed, So some progress has been made in that regard. And then in the area of the economy, I am not very sure whether the economy is, improving the way it should, or even though still some progress may have been made, So in a nutshell, I would say, well, in the Buhari may be remembered as one person who had consistently fought to rule the country. Eventually, he came in, and then he's having his last, tenure, and so that doggedness of,
the tenacity at which he pursued his ambition.
And then eventually he was able to get it, and well, he has tried his best, but the challenges that Nigeria has are still there. So it's only hope that the person who is coming to succeed him will step in from where he had stopped and then be able to move the country forward from where we are currently.
Okay, we've had, an X-ray kind of, or a review of the promises and where we are. Mr. Kande Amudu, looking at the political front, before he eventually won the 2015 election, President Muhammadu Buhari has been consistent about also criticizing, so to speak, the nation's electoral process, and of course the seeming gaps, within. And then same, with also the judicial processes, after he lost the 2023, the 2007, 2003 and 2007, and even 2011, he went to court. Yes. And he talks about the judicial process as being one that is notoriously, kind of delayed justice and what have you. Since he came into power to now, what has changed? Has anything changed, in this trajectory?
Well, we can talk about an INEC that has become more technology-driven. We can talk about electoral reforms that have come in. There have been, in each of his tenures, there's been electoral reforms that have been forwarded. We have to note that President Buhari has competed against every president in this democratic dispensation.
Yeah, 1999 to date.
1999 to date. And on each, and at every point at which he contested and lost, then he went to court, he criticized the process, he brought up things that he thought should be changed in the process. Have they changed? That's the question. Yeah. And yes, you can say you have a more forward-looking INEC. Yes, we can talk about him not interfering in cases, and then that's where it now comes up to where we are today. His policy of non-interference in the political process, even if it hurts his political associates, is one thing that you could say is a plus in the political process.
But is that total? Because at some point we've seen some level of, interjection. Let's take, for instance, the emergence of the national chairman of the party, the primary that brought new leadership of the APC. He sort of provided a direction. And again, he also promised that he want to also provide a direction for who emerge, flag bearer of the party until it turns out, the other way around. Did you think he has been also, despite his disposition with regards to allowing an open and democratic process, he also has some interest in it?
No, you have to look at his predecessor. Compare him to his predecessor. His predecessor spent 5 years in office and went through 6 PDP chairmen within that 5 years. You understand? So that is an average of 1 chairman a year, then an extra. 1 chairman spent 10 months in office. You understand? So you can look at
compared to
him,
his predecessors.
You can look at the way he has interfered. Yes, I'm not saying that he hasn't interfered. Yes, he's interfered in the process. He's interfered in the process when the process looks as if it's about to collapse, like we had in the APC chairman. We had a chairman of a committee that didn't want to go. And then we had National Working Committee members
that were
loggerheads with the man that didn't want to go. So he had to step in. It also happened when Adams Oshiomhole also stepped down.
That's right.
He had to step in. But if you look at his philosophy, he's not a person that had been hands-on on the party, unlike his predecessors. His predecessors, all the presidents behind him have tinkered, except perhaps for Yaradua, who was not well, so he didn't have that much opportunity and time to tinker with the party processes.
So it is safe to say that it is not the same President Muhammadu Buhari that we know, during the military era. The concerns have been before, when he emerged in 2015, that there's likelihood Nigerians will see that autocratic tendencies and what have you. So from the points, Mr. Kandi is making is that we've seen a different President Muhammadu Buhari, a more democratic President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been allowing processes to take place, especially in our democratic experiment.
Definitely, under the democratic environment, there is no way he would completely remain, autocratic in governing according to the principles of the military. Even he himself, when he came on board, I think he said yes, he is no longer in the military, and that under democracy, there are processes and procedures. There is also the constitution that allows for democratic governance to be, to take place. So definitely, he is not, or he has never been the same person as it were when he was in the military, because probably because circumstances will not allow that, and himself too, I think he may have found himself in an environment that he definitely has to allow for the practice of democracy to take place. So his actions and policies and all of that
would have to align.
He has to align with the democratic tenets.
Right. Okay. It is the hope of every leader, for instance, and we've seen that happen over time, to have a successor. In most cases, people look up to their deputies or those who are their running mates and what have you for succession, kind of. Leaders have succession plan, for instance. President Muhammadu Buhari came in 2015 and is rounding up in 2023. Yet, some would say there wasn't a definite succession plan as to who, succeed him. How do you see that as a lacuna, or, a gap in leadership? Or is it about his disposition, again, towards, allowing things to take shape naturally?
Well, he has that disposition. I see it as a failure, because leadership entails you bringing up people that follow your ideals, training up, so to speak. He hasn't done that. What we've actually seen is, because of his disposition, people have stepped into the gap and tried to fill his position for him, because he's not seen as an all-out politician. For instance, what happened when suddenly, out of the blue, there was a consensus candidate that sprung out of, and it took
a supposed
consensus candidate.
Because the presidency had already disowned that arrangement anyway.
Yes, the presidency disowned the arrangement, but, you know, would you say that he didn't have a fleeting idea? Something wasn't mentioned. Did they just drop his name? Or did he say, okay, go and try, and let's see how far it goes?
Some would say even the trajectories would not support that, because at some point he said, you know, he has a prepared candidate, a prepared successor, but he wouldn't want to mention the name so that the person will
not be engulfed.
So
where is this? Where is the successor? Because everybody thought.
That is the question. You
know? Everybody thought that the vice president was his preferred candidate. Well, everybody outside the circle thought.
What he said, you know, his prepared successor will be killed if he mentioned his name. If actually he's referring to.
No, but he was actually very wise there, because you could see that when the first candidate to declare his interest stepped forward, that was Asiwaju
at that point, yeah.
Everything came up. Everything came up, health, blah, 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 corruption, all sorts of things to dissuade him from running. Then the vice president came up too, and then suddenly too, for him, although he had an easier ride, all sorts of things also came up about him.
Issues, right?
Issues are raised, you understand? So, yes, he was wise. He was right in that respect, that, well, if and the whole idea is, if it comes from me, because maybe perhaps people, you know, maybe has that idea that perhaps people would criticize his choice, which is why he has remained neutral.
Okay, so some will say perhaps he was overwhelmed, or he looked at the environment is not, conducive. You know, he also realized that because there were a lot of attempts, you know, to arrive at the consensus, series of meetings to arrive at consensus. Perhaps because of the failure or the collapse of the consensus talks, that's why they have to go, you know, into an open contest. But then, as a president who should have, you know, an overriding influence on a political party, you know, as it is, they say the president is the leader of the party, even though this time around he has conceded, you know, to the presidential flag bearer, Bola Tinubu, as leader of the party. But everyone knows that he is the leader of the party.
That's true.
Literally. So, how do you, the failure to take charge or to provide that leadership that he promised to provide. Remember, a few days to the convention, he did told the governors that they should allow him to provide a leadership.
Yes,
so what could have prevented him from providing that leadership, in your estimation?
I think I also subscribe to the fact that he was probably overwhelmed because of the complexity of the Nigerian political, system. And then even the ruling party, the kind of, arrangement that brought about the ruling party. You have different blocks, different interests coming together to form the APC. So ordinarily, in the Nigerian political system, previous presidents, we have seen that they were always deliberately, working towards getting who succeeds them. And one would have also expected that the same thing should happen in this case, because there is no how you tell me that the president who has ruled for this length of time.
Even though we didn't have, a history of that.
I don't agree with that.
From 1999 to date,
yes,
we haven't seen any of those.
No. The only person that has chosen his successor was President Obasanjo.
No, what we're saying is
how
did it end too?
We're
talking about
but he chose his successor. His successor died in office, Then came the President Jonathan, right, and he lost his second term bid.
So what we're saying is that there is a difference between showing interest in your successor and whether he turns out to really succeed or not. But you deliberately need to have that interest in who succeeds.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that apparently there was an absence of that.
Yes.
Completely, because we haven't seen.
I don't agree.
Okay, let's get your views then.
I also think that the coming up of the flag bearer had a tinkering there. Now, whether we like it or not, there were talks, there were agreements when APC was formed, and everybody went back to those agreements. And in those agreements,
though we haven't seen those written in black and white.
They weren't written in black and white, but they were agreements. You can't say that because they aren't written in black and white, there were no political agreements at the onset of an arrangement.
But why were they being, jettisoned at the point they matter?
Because politicians always play that card. Remember that a President Goodluck Jonathan agreed to one term. And that is why he fell out with President Obasanjo. And see, many people, after when President Jonathan said there was no such agreement, many people didn't know the internal workings. For instance, he was acting president, and when he was vying for he went to Ethiopia. He went to Uganda. And when he spoke to the Nigerian community on both occasions, he said a 4-year term is enough for him to do everything he has in mind for Nigeria. And anybody that comes after him can complete. His foreign minister at that time was running helter skelter. Why would he say that thing?
He knew the implications.
He knew the implications. And so, it was strange that barely 5 years later, he was saying that there was no such agreement. Somebody campaigned for him all around Nigeria based on that agreement and made agreements on his behalf. And he said there was no such arrangement.
So we know there were a lot of pressure on him, a lot of people have been pushing that, you should just run and things like that.
Yes.
But don't forget about the implications, it's a democratic process, you have your right.
No, but he has his right to run.
What have you.
But he should have come out to say, yes,
to own up to the agreement.
Yes, there was an agreement. So in this situation too, there were agreements before they went into that.
There was even also the controversy about whether there was an agreement for him to hand over to Tinubu.
I think that's the point he was making.
But
yes,
deniers and
because at the point politicians will deny. That's just the point.
Okay, well, it is natural. Some would say power corrupts. Absolutely. Some would say, and then the people within the corridors of power, in most cases, also influence.
Yes.
We've seen the same precedent you're talking about also saying no at a matter at the time it also matters. 2015. Some of his close aides were like, no, don't give up on what happened. But he felt that, as he said, then his ambition does not want the blood of any Nigerian.
Exactly.
So we've seen at some point leaders can also take charge and do the right thing, irrespective of what somebody thinks.
Definitely.
Okay, coming back to Mr. Kehinde was actually talking about, the imperative of building a successor who will carry on the baton, someone who believes in your ideology and will continue with the work you started. There has been a lot of, some will say, Buhari is a phenomenon. It's not just, he is someone who should be, you can say someone who has an ideology, a political ideology. Some say Buharism, is their political ideology. I've interfaced with many who, are even nursing the concept of building that, Buharism ideology. But one critical challenge is having a platform, leadership, academy, sort of. We've seen leaders in other climes, who, because of their philosophy and ideology, come up with such kind of leadership academy to build people. But some would say this is one characteristic that is absent in President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, I don't know how true is that, but some say you can hardly pinpoint one or two people that you said he has built, he has brought up, in terms of mentorship. How are you looking at that? Is that something that can be?
No, definitely, like you said, in Buhari, he has his own ideas, his ideology in politics. He's seen largely as somebody who is, not corrupt, somebody who is firm in, whatever thing he tries to do, looking at his antecedents and all of that. But like you rightly pointed out, that deliberate attempt to build up that institutionalized ideological platform where probably those who are his students or students of his ideas can follow his footsteps and then, take leadership positions even in the future. It's not there. There is no platform that is structure in place. So it just exists, in isolation. I mean, you don't have a particular where you can point to say, look, this is where the Buhari ideology can be institutionalized for people to come and, so that one is lacking. So by the end of the day, people see if by the time he leaves the scene, his legacies may suffer some consequences.
That's right.
Because you would not necessarily have a particular platform to sustain it.
That's right.
Some of these people that are, aspiring for leadership position keep saying, well, when they come on, they are going to follow the footsteps of the president and all of that. But how do you do that? Because by the end of the day, there is no
platform to
be able to carry on with those kind of ideas.
Mr. Kandi, before we go for the break, is it to say that this does not worry the president? Because yes, every leader would want to see his legacy sustained and even surpassed, but it appears Mr. President is comfortable, is not too concerned about. At some point, he even said perhaps he doesn't. I mean, he has no. I mean, he didn't. He anointed no one. It seems he's not keen or interested in seeing someone who will carry on with the. I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think that there are people in his political circle that have walked with him and worked with him all these years that could be said or could carry on his legacies. So I don't agree.
But why didn't they surface? I understand the point you're making. For instance, there are a number of people who have been with him right from the days he's at the trenches, the likes of Hamid Ali, I don't want to mention names, and a few others like that, who have been consistent and been with him right from the day. But none of these people surfaced, towards the 2023 election. What could have been the missing link?
The fact that there is no structure.
Just like no Mr. Fidelis is saying.
Political structure. There is just a following. Now,
which can fizzle out.
Which can fizzle. Well, it can. There's no structure. Now, if you compare that, and that's a failing on the part of the president. When President Obasanjo did his first term, he realized after the first term that he didn't have a structure. Well, there are issues between him and his vice president then. But he realized that the structure that he will be relying on to bring him in for a second term belonged to his vice president. So when he came into power, he deliberately built a structure.
A new structure.
A new structure, an Obasanjo structure. And, you know, building that kind of structure will require a network, not just in Katsina or in the Northwest, but across
the
country.
The country.
So it's that structure that he does not have. And
but we've seen people emerge in his cabinet from across the country. He has a number of people from the South, from the Southeast, from the Southwest, working together with him. Those who believe in his ideas.
People brought structures. People brought their own structures and collapsed
Donate
it.
somehow.
Yes.
Okay.
Most of the structures
are not,
original.
Yes, you have a Buhari organization or the Buhari Media Organization, Buhari Solidarity Front. But in the final analysis, how strong of a structure is that? If you have that structure, would you compare it to, for instance, the Tinubu structure? That's a person that is not...
has been existing for years.
That's even a person that is not even in government.
A president, that's right.
Or an Atiku political structure.
Well, okay, that's a fundamental issue. We need to explore more when we return. It's about time we take a break. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics. And today our talking point is an election without President Buhari on the ballot. And together we'll be looking at, you know, his stewardship over the years, his struggle to, lead the country, and of course, his effort at transforming some of the key sectors of our polity for entrenchment of, a better democracy. And I've been interfacing with Mr. Kehinde Amodu, and of course, Mr. Fidelis Makleba. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll also be looking at, what will happen in terms of the political calculations, and of course, some of the antecedents with regards to leadership, electoral direction of the various regions as we are heading towards the election. What will the absence of the Buhari, candidate Buhari will do in terms of, disfiguring or consolidating the structures across regional lines? We'll take a break. When we return, the discussion continues. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics, and we're looking at an election without President Buhari or candidate Buhari on the ballot. And I've been interfacing with Mr. Kehinde Amodu, the State House correspondent of Trust TV, and of course, Mr. Fidelis Makleba, the investigative editor of Daily Trust newspaper. Just before the break, we're looking at the trajectories. But then basically about the foundation, about the structure, and what have you. One thing that has been consistent, Mr. Kehinde, is of course the fact that candidate Buhari at that point, that's 2003, 2007, and 2011, has been one, block, so to speak, one individual who has his crowd, his followers. At some point, we're talking about the 11 million votes or so that has been there, especially now that he's not going to be on the ballot. Yes, some gladiators within the northern configuration, the northern regional, calculations are also springing up. Some would say everyone would want to cut from that block vote, sort of. Do you think, his absence on the ballot would change the dynamics, especially in the northern part of the country?
Yeah, it will change the dynamics, not only in the northern part, across the country. In the final analysis, I don't think the political calculations will shift too much.
Okay.
Now, when we're talking about block votes, you understand, let's not assume that he is gone already. He's still in government for the next 1 year. Out of that 1 year, a President Buhari, not a candidate now, but a president will still be in government to
provide a direction?
Just
like you said?
Yeah, provide a direction, to do some manipulations, you understand? Because there is no way you would say that a President Buhari will not be interested in who is going to succeed him. So that's why I said when we were talking earlier, that I don't agree that he doesn't have an interest in his successor.
But some would say, the emergence of the flag bearer, I don't know how you look at it. Some would say wasn't, in the interest of some people. It wasn't palatable to some people, and that could have, distorted the calculations and so on. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it wasn't palatable. That's the game. Politics is a game. A lot of people were relying on President Buhari's endorsement. That didn't happen. Some people, therefore, are not happy now. Now it depends on how much the flag bearer can now, and he's been going around doing that, mobilize, cut deals, so to speak, and say, look, work for me and everything. That's why I was saying the political configurations may not change too much.
Okay.
The president will still go around in the campaigns and raise the hand.
Yeah, I'm actually coming to that because beyond the presidential,
raise the hand.
Because beyond the presidential candidate, a number of candidates at the subnational levels also would want to rely on the president. We've seen what happened, historically, in the last elections and so on. Anywhere President Muhammadu Buhari raised any politician hand, it is home and done. It's sealed somehow. Are we likely going to see such happen? Because people are beginning to remember, those times people also always attach his poster, his picture, in their posters. They always make sure that President Muhammadu Buhari's picture is beside. Though we are not yet into the campaigns proper, do you think we will be seeing such things happening?
I think this time around the pendulum is going to shift. The paradigm is going to shift, rather. Merely lifting the hands of candidates or politicians this time is not going to win anybody in an election, because Nigerians have seen that, look, this time around, what you have done with your past mandate is going to be a yardstick, and what you are going to bring on the table is also going to be a factor. The way the country is now, with the socio-economic and political problems that are there, now has made people to begin to come back to consciousness and say, look, this time is not going to be business as usual.
Are we saying that influence is diminishing?
Yes, that is diminishing. Okay. Now people are beginning to confront, to come to terms with the reality. So what is going to basically determine the choices of people is not because Buhari has raised anybody's hand or this thing and all of that. Because even in terms of Buhari's this thing, people have their judgment, their reservation on how well he has performed. So by the end of the day, some people are even identifying with him based on what is on ground. Is even what you call demarketing.
We've seen some of the contenders, the aspirants, the presidential aspirants, finding it extremely difficult to strike a balance. In terms of projecting what has been done, and then what are the gaps and what have you. So I don't know if you noticed that.
Yes, I've noticed. But don't you think that there's an irony there? There's a contradiction there. Okay. We are still talking about, why did the president not use his influence to choose a successor? That anybody he said would emerge at the primaries level
would be questioned.
Would not have been questioned, that he should have, and he wisely chose not to do so. I'm not saying it boils down to merely raising his hands.
Yeah, but the point
person who is
Mr.
the candidate
is making is,
yes, I'm coming to his point.
How such raising of hands or association
it's not going to it's not
going to get votes for anybody.
It's not going to get votes for anybody. But
would it demarcate if it doesn't get votes for?
It will even demarcate.
Would it demarcate, the candidates?
Yes. I don't think it has gone that far. I think the candidates themselves. Yes, Buhari is not on the ballot, so every Nigerian realizes that. But there are still the people, the man still has a following that has not been, well, it may have been depleted a few millions, but it is still a following that is a sizable chunk.
That cannot be neglected. Yeah.
That cannot be neglected. What people will try to do, mark my words, as the new campaigns approach, is to try to, lean a bit on his reputation, not on his performance.
Okay. So the reputation remained intact in spite of the
performance,
the challenges.
In the area of his block vote, not in other areas of the country. But
but we're beginning to see the mini Buharis, people who are trying to jump into his shoes now.
Yes, to cut into. You understand? But I am saying that even to cut into the Buhari space, they will need, because of that following, to lean a bit. They may not be from APC. In past elections, we've seen people that have come out with from PDP, that have come out with posters. In fact, the President Governor of Bauchi State,
that is not
you understand?
I think there is a disillusioned followership, like you say. I mean,
is it disillusioned?
Disillusioned followership.
Before or now?
Now. There are people now who are disillusioned.
Because, a lot of young people.
Yes. People a lot of young people in those days looked up to this president as, someone who, when he comes there, is going to be like a magic thing. Now, the extent to which things have gone, many are disillusioned, and they are looking forward to seeing that, look, they need to try an alternative. So by the time some of these people who are thinking that they are going to ride on that has waned.
So everybody will have to be on his own?
Yeah, it's like everybody is going to be on his own.
That's right.
For those who want to, still ride on his crest, they could do that, but they will be doing that at their own risk.
Period. Okay, let's look at some of the legacies.
Yes.
Still talking about democratic, what he was able to achieve, in our democratic processes. Some far-reaching reforms. We were talking about the Electoral Act. We've also seen, some level of constitutional amendments that are also geared towards, delivering a credible process and what have you. Do you think, some of these achievements are things, to count on with regards to some of the changes, that President Muhammadu Buhari was able to bring to the electoral process in Nigeria?
Yes, of course. Particularly in the area of the electoral reforms, talking about the Electoral Act. Well, many people say the process of amending the Constitution or even this Electoral Act dragged for too long. But sometimes it's better late than never. So at the tail end of his administration is when you had some semblance of the amendments, which up to now is still not yet completed. But
they're still lingering.
But especially when the process is put in place, and there is a basis for which others, because this is a continuum, and by the time at least the foundation has been laid, whatever abnormalities that are there in the Electoral Act or even the Constitution in totality, by the time the new government comes into place, they could build on that. So to that extent, one can give him some credit to say, well, it was late in coming, but by the end of the day, there is something to hold on to.
Yeah. So it's at least never let the never. He's still able to deliver on that
premise.
Right. Okay, Mr. Kande, we've also seen, since the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari as president, a very cordial working relationship between the executive and the legislature, and this has also helped, in some of these reforms that we're talking about. We've seen a shift in the way we do our budgeting processes. The budget cycle is completely changed. As a result of some of this, this cordial working relationship. We are now returned to the 12 calendar cycle of budgeting and what have you. Do you see this sort of relationship continue beyond 2023, or do you think we'll go back to the days where we'll be having clashes between the executive and the legislature after he left the scene?
Well, President Buhari did have his own battles with the legislature.
Yeah.
It's only in his second term that he has managed to have a working relationship with the National Assembly. And some people will still question at what cost, because a lot of people see the National Assembly as a rubber stamp, unquote. And you can't blame some of these people. We've had an enormous amount of loans signed on by the National Assembly, which one just questioned. We are just led to run on. And, at the end of the day, the worry is that when these loans are going to be paid back, they will not be paid back by this administration. They'll be paid back by administrations that come after this administration. Now, you might not blame him because of the state of the economy when he came in. But I think the state of the economy when he came in is still a little bit better than the state in which he's living it as he's going out. Because right now we have the Naira at 600 and something. Whereas when he came it was like
the exchange rate, the rising inflation.
Rising inflation.
They talking about almost 18%.
Yeah. Almost 18% now, and it's still going to go up.
Okay. Now, looking, we're rounding up now. President Muhammadu Buhari, how would it look like, when he finally, end his tenure 2023? Do you see him as a person who would leave the stage fulfilled, that he has actually delivered what he has been yearning to deliver to Nigerians in the last 12 years? In the 12 years struggle he's been making, to arrive at leadership position, or do you think he would have some regrets? And why would he have such regrets?
Well, I'm not in his mind. He is the one that should determine that. But
do you think he's going to leave a fulfilled person?
Well, it's going to be like a mixed kind of thing. Well, there are those ups and downs. There are areas where he would definitely sit back. There's no human being that is perfect.
That's right.
And so whatever engagement you are involved in, by the end of the day, when you sit back, you are bound to look at areas where you will say, I would have done it A, B, C, I would have done. But one thing that I know is that the investment of, hope by Nigerians in him over the years, through all these struggles to come into the presidency.
Has it been justified?
Whether that is justified, I think, is something that is obvious, to the average Nigerian, because people are disillusioned, like I said. Okay,
Mr. Kande, let me get your last line on that. Where do you see,
No, he will leave fulfilled.
Okay.
But I don't think he will leave the stage satisfied with what he has done with the Nigerian economy. He will leave fulfilled. He served 8 years as a president.
He does what he can.
So that's the only fulfillment. But if he looks back, if he's going now and looks back and he sees the economy is still
poverty rate.
The poverty rate.
The indices are still where they are.
The rate of insecurity. And I mean, there is no way you live unless there is a magic wand that will wipe all these things away in the next.
No magic wand
in the next 1 year.
Foreseeable.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking to us. I think it's about time we draw the curtain on the discussion. Mr. Kainde Amodu and of course Mr. Fidelis Makleba, for your thoughts and perspectives on this very important topic. 2023, an election without President Muhammadu Buhari on the ballot. We also appreciate the technical crew for making it possible. On their behalf, I am Shapiro Suleiman, thanking you for staying with us.